Let's begin with a bit of an update on some personnel. What's the situation with Mo Sangare? Because I know there was a huge amount of concern about him on Saturday.
He's had an X-ray. I don't think it's broke, but he's in a boot. It might be ligament damage, so he's not going to be available for the next couple of weeks, I think.
I suppose that's an outcome that's better than was first feared, but is it just a wait-and-see situation?
Yeah, sometimes a crack in your bone can be better than a ligament damage, so I don't know, we'll just have to see. He's in the hands of the medical department.
It must be a tough one to take this season, the number of setbacks and injuries and you know, people getting back to fitness and then being ruled out again. You've seen plenty in your career. Where does this kind of rank?
Oh, this is by far and away the worst season we've had for injuries. We had one a couple of years ago where we started off the season with a lot, but I can't ever remember this many. And then you added to that, we feel a harsh suspension for Seamus as well. So your numbers get quickly depleted, and people look at our squad and say we've got a big squad. A lot of them are made up of 23 players, and we're doing 23s, and a few loans, and even the numbers are starting to thin out now anyway. So, but as long as we can patch your team up together, I'm confident that whoever they put in, they'll give their all, as they did Saturday.
Is there anything else new injury-wise, other than Mo?
Joe Pritchard's possibly fractured his hand, so we'll have to see about that.
Is that the sort of thing that would mean he would be ruled out, or can you do things with casts and...
Again, it's out of my jurisdiction, but I don't think he'll be fit for tomorrow.
Now, I think Seamus Kennedy can play, can't he? Because of the 3-match suspension is for the league. Does it sort of stand to reason that if he's able to play for fitness, for match fitness-wise, that it's probably a good idea for him to play? Just say the line.
Danny will tell you picking my team, Dan. I'm hoping Seamus will play tomorrow.
In the forward areas, Toure Cisse came off the subs bench at the weekend. Nathan Delfonso obviously has been doing that role, coming off the substitutes bench, trying to build his match fitness up. How important is this competition? I know you want to win the games, I know you want to go through, but how important is it to have competitive games in which players can get an opportunity to get game time? I'm thinking about Delfonso at Salford, for example. Yeah,
for me, it's a really good idea, this cup. I know other people don't subscribe to it. I like it. I love playing games. I love the idea of being involved in football matches. I know people say we play too much football, and a lot of managers complain about it. You never ever hear me complain about a fixture pile up. I love playing football. I loved playing football as a player. And I know that deep down, players would sooner play than train. I know they would. So bring as many games on as possible for me.
Just in terms of your forward options, Tommy Lee's been doing that job, and you've been on record as saying, you know, that isn't what he does, but he's doing a good job there. How much does it change things to have Delfonso and Cisse getting towards fitness and at least being an option for
Yeah,
him?
we just got to get more games under the belt. You know what? Obviously, Nathan's a recognised striker, and he's done it in the past. It's just getting him up to match speed, really. And Toure the same with his injury, so hopefully the more he play, the better he'll get.
As far as the actual game is concerned, your approach to these fixtures is on record. You know, you always want to talk about Wembley and trying to get there and an opportunity and all those kind of things. The equation's pretty simple, isn't it? It's the last group game, and if you win, you go through. Does it feel like a knockout game in that regard?
It does, and you know, we've got to take it as a knockout game, and we've got to do everything we can to win the game, and that's what we'll be trying to do. I'm not one of these who wants to take it easy. I want to win the game.
Are the knockout games, or is that sort of knockout mentality, is that more enjoyable? Is that better than the group stage? I know they've put the penalty shootout in if you draw in the group games, but is this more jeopardy in it? Is it sort of more on the line?
Yeah, I don't particularly like that, but I just love the competitive nature of football, and I think when you don't, I don't think you should be involved. To be honest, I think once you lose that love of competing and putting yourself on the line and trying to outwork the opposition, once you lose the love of that, you shouldn't be involved in football, in my opinion.
Liverpool's youngsters, obviously you're a Liverpool fan, you would take a massive interest in the first team. How much scouting do you have to do? How much prep do you have to do on the kids that are coming through the academy?
Yeah, we've watched a lot of them anyway. But you know, we'll do our due diligence like we do every team. So we'll treat this game like a league game.
As far as these under-21 teams are concerned, sometimes it's quite difficult to know who's going to play, whether there's going to be first-team players dropping in, whether it's going to be very young players. Does it matter if you've got your own house in order and you've organised yourselves and all that, those kind of things? Does it matter enormously about the personnel for the other team?
Well, you've just got to be mindful of what they can do to you. So, you know, we're not blasé about it. I know the youngsters, but the youngsters are ultimately very, very keen. They wouldn't be at Liverpool if they didn't have very, very good technical ability. So, you know, it won't be an easy game tomorrow.
This competition of changes were made a while ago, the idea of giving young players more exposure to men's football, senior football, whatever you want to call it. You've had a lot of academy players from Premier League teams on loan over the years. Are you detecting a change? Are you detecting an improvement in the standard of those players that you're getting in for this experience?
I think the standard is improving, and I think it should improve further. The more exposure they get to playing, and without being disrespectful to the 23 set up of the Premier League teams, the players come on leaps and bounds when they go out on loan. You know, you look at Ryan Ashley, and I've seen Ryan play several times for Everton under 23s. He'll learn a lot more by playing in games that are more competitive, that have got more at stake, points at stake, league positions at stake, bonuses at stake, clean sheet bonuses at stake. Then he will play in an under 23 game, in my opinion.
Do you think therefore that there'll be loads of scouts sitting in the stand looking at these young players to see them in a sort of more senior environment about maybe taking them?
They should be, because you know they're playing up against men, and I think we saw it a couple of years ago when we played Man United. And Man United were technically very, very good, and it caused us lots of problems. But physically they couldn't handle because we were men, and ultimately that's why we won the game. We outmuscled them, and this is part of the learning curve for these young lads coming in to play games.
I've got to ask you about penalties after what happened at the weekend. First things first, is Sean McConville still got your backing? Does he still want to take them after what happened at the weekend?
We'll have a discussion about that today, Sean. I mean, I think he scored his last 6. I think he scored 2 in pre-season, 1 in the league and 3 penalty in the penalty shootout. So he scored his last 6. There wasn't enough time between the 2 penalties to even think about somebody else taking it. You know, he's grabbed the ball. I've never been one who'd take the penalty off a penalty taker. I've played myself and missed the penalty and then scored another one in the game. So I've got no qualms about him taking the other penalty by his own and missing the 2 bad penalties, and that happens. What shouldn't happen is they shouldn't score from the goal kick. That was the really rubbing salt into the wounds. But things like that happen in football, and you know what's happened to us before. Last time we had 2 penalties in a minute, we missed them both. So I spoke to the head of the referees, and he agreed with what everybody thought at the time, that the player should have been sent off. And it's a different dynamic. 1, taking a penalty against 10 men, but 2, they're certainly not scoring the second goal, because they're going to take a striker off and bring a centre half in. So, you know, that's the thing that galls you a little bit. That the rules weren't adhered to, and we weren't playing against 10, because I think last year we played with 10 men for about 10 games. So we had plenty sent off for less incidents than that. And
just on penalties generally, you've had a few shootouts this season, you've lost a couple, you've won 1. Is that something you do as part of your preparations for these games now, knowing that it's in the equation?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It's you can't prepare for it. You can't prepare for a penalty shootout. You can't prepare for the pressure of taking a penalty. I don't think, anyway. I think as much as you practice, you can't prepare. You know, because it's a totally different environment when you're taking a penalty. Particularly Sean on Saturdays, sitting against like 1,800 fans behind the goal. You can't practice that and train unless you get 1,800 extras in, which we're not, we haven't got the facility to do that. But it's a very, very small percentage of the game, penalties, and we'll treat it like that.
Does your insight help, the fact that you've been there and done it and scored plenty and missed a few as well?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think I know myself, and I never liked taking penalties. It was something that you had to do as a striker because it guaranteed you 6 goals on your tally a season, really. You know, and you could afford to miss a couple because you're going to probably get 8 a season and you're going to score 6. And so you had to do it, but I never liked doing it. I was nervous. And the consequences of missing it, you feel as though you've let the team down. And Sean felt like that on Saturday, and I had to send him a text. Well, I didn't have to send him, but I sent him a text on Saturday night, you know, tell him to get his head up, and then, you know, I sent him the Michael Jordan quote of how many times he'd missed shots, how many times he'd missed the shot to win the match. And he believed that made him successful because he was prepared to put himself into them situations and be prepared to miss. And I think Sean's a very, very big character in our dressing room, and that won't affect him.